And now a story on drawing the line between academic freedom and cancel culture. McGill psychology professor Martin Drapeau found himself being, quote-unquote, canceled after questioning new admissions questions designed to attract a more diverse student body. How much of a role should a student's background play in their admission? To tell us more about what happened in this case is Professor Martin Drapeau, clinical psychologist. He's a full professor of counseling psychology and psychiatry at McGill University. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So tell me, Dr. Drapeau here, what happened to you?
Well, it's a long story. It's a very long story. To make it short, the issue began around calls to cancel an event, conference that was to be organized at McGill University, which I opposed these calls because I believe that university should be a place of discussion and debate, even if that means heated debate. So that's how it started. Eventually, there was a proposal to implement these admission procedures whereby people were given points based on, I guess we could call it their demographics, right? So their religion, their cultural background, sexual orientation, and so on and so forth. And I opposed that by writing a first paper in the Devoir that was published just a while ago. It created quite a stir in our program, and so I clarified, I followed up with a second paper, and then from there came all sorts of accusations of transphobia, of being misogynist and sexist, and so on and so forth. So that's the bulk of it, and then of course I was sort of catapulted into this, not really understanding what was going on, and so we decided to approach it like a scientist and start documenting this through surveys and research projects to understand what's actually going on.
And to be clear here, this is not just you that's going through this at McGill, right? There are some other professors, particularly in the STEM fields, who are speaking out here.
Oh, absolutely. No, and I was just when the paper came out from that was published by Émilie Dubreuil, people have been reaching out, and there's other professors, including in medicine, who've been told to not present differences between men and women, for example. In such basic fields as medicine. And so these people have written op-eds as well. And so these people are now reaching out saying there's a problem. It's not just the professors, it's also students. A lot of students are fed up with I guess we can call it radicalization that's increasingly present, at least polarization that's present in many universities. And students are saying this is really affecting the quality of the training we're getting because we're not in a position anymore where we feel comfortable or able to address hot topics, debate, have conversations about things that are difficult to discuss, like politics and race and gender. And so students basically breeze through the program with their head down and are afraid to speak up. And, of course, that affects the quality of the training.
And I would imagine one of the things you must hear is, well, what's the problem with wanting more diversity, inclusion, more equality and diversity in the university sphere? What's the problem with that? How do you respond when you get that accusation?
That's not the question. That's not the question for me because that's not what's at stake. There is absolutely no problem, none whatsoever with that. The question is how you do it. Right? So do you penalize some people? Do you exclude them? And more importantly, at least from where I stand, the main issue is around the issue of censorship because people are no longer allowed to engage in conversation around these topics, including about the best ways of doing this, but including about the best ways of increasing diversity and equity and so on, and inclusion. And that's to me is the real problem. There's many ways of doing this. We can agree, we can disagree, but we've got to be able to talk about these things, and now we can't, simply because I think some people believe they have the moral high ground. And so there's no room.
We're with Professor Martin Drapeau. He's from counseling psychology and psychiatry at McGill University. So, Dr. Drapeau, let's talk about the ramifications on you. What is with your colleagues, right? What's their treatment been of you? What is it? How has life been since you started to speak out on these issues?
Well, very, very difficult. I think I want to be clear that the issue is not with an entire department. It turns out to be a small group of people who have certain beliefs, and who, again, I think believe they have some kind of deeper understanding of issues to the point where there's no room for discussion. But most people, I think, and this is where I find it to be highly problematic, just look the other way because well, they see what happens to me, right? What's happening to me, they look the other way. They're afraid of speaking up. They don't want the same thing that happened to them. And so people, keep their eyes on the ball of their next promotion or tenure and so on and so forth. And so they keep their heads down. And then there's no room for conversation anymore about these things. That to me is highly problematic.
So let's get to fixing that, right? Because I am very much concerned that it feels like some university campuses, you can't really have just open discussions. Let's just throw ideas at each other and let the best ideas win. That's not happening. Now, in Quebec, there's a Bill 32, that's being proposed. And then I look, do we really want government involved in coming up with laws like this? But I do know that the sort of the goal here is noble. I'm just not so sure government should be getting involved in this. What's your take here on Bill 32?
It's a great point. You would have asked me this 2 years ago. I would have said, no way. There's no way the government should impede on the autonomy of universities. But the point is that universities, this problem has been growing in universities, and universities have failed. And when I say universities, I mean university leadership have failed repeatedly to address it. And I think it's too late. At this point, there needs to be a third party to step in and set the record straight, because we have not been, as academics, we have not been able to do this on our own. We haven't.
I sense, Dr. Drapeau, kind of schism forming between Quebec and the rest of Canada on this issue of academic freedom. Some of the stuff I see in Ontario and other parts of Canada, I say, oh boy, they're really going in a sort of extreme approach. And I've always felt, we've got a bit more of a moat here in Quebec. What are you hearing from your colleagues at Francophone universities, at French universities in this province? Is it happening there as well?
Oh, yeah, it is. I mean, it's definitely happening everywhere, but it's also definitely more present in English-speaking universities. There's no doubt about that. We've been collecting data across Canada. It's still tentative. It's early to draw firm conclusions, but the problem is more present, it seems, in English-speaking universities than in French-speaking universities. That's undeniable.
So, Dr. Drapeau, let's talk about other solutions here. If we want diversity and inclusion on university campuses, you were making the point off the top. You're not against that. You just want us to talk about what would be the best way. So let's talk about those solutions. What in those meetings that you're having where you've got a clash? What are the points you're making?
Well, to be honest, I haven't been able to make these points. That's precisely my point. I think there's different ways of doing this. We could have blind reviews, but we can also increase diversity, for example, by reserving. There's ways of doing this, and the Quebec Charter of Rights and Freedom allows it under certain conditions. If you say that, for example, certain groups are underrepresented, there are rules to do this. Then you can reserve openings or positions in the program for these individuals. You can do that. But the other issue that's sort of no one's talking about is what's the level of diversity we want. So we know, for example, that it's absolutely undeniable that women are underrepresented in universities. That's a fact. That's an absolute truth. But then you look at it at the program level, the faculty level, the department level. So, for example, in our program, on a cohort of roughly 20 students, we're going to have maybe 2. If we're lucky, we'll have 3 men. Right? Huh. So then do we have to look for admitting more women into our program? And then how do we know we've reached our target? Is it when we've excluded all men? Is that the ultimate goal? Because at the university level they're underrepresented doesn't mean that at a program level they're underrepresented. And that raises other questions about, for example, the type of psychologists that we're going to have. So we need diversity. We need First Nations. We need Black. We need male psychologists. We need all of this in order to treat the population. And right now, we're not going towards that at all.
Can I ask you, on the research front, on studies and that, are you seeing science being affected because of some of these measures?
Not because of the measures, but because of the philosophy and the beliefs that underlie and that motivate some of these measures. Yes, that's true. I've had students, when I wrote my papers in the law, students come to me and say, at first they were afraid to come to me because they thought I endorsed this philosophy. But then when they saw my papers, they started reaching out, telling me their stories, and I've heard stories of mentorship in classes where some theories are off limits. You can't debate these theories. And some of these, for example, attachment theory is a crucial theory in psychology. And, some professor feels that is a sexist or misogynist theory, so it's not allowed in the classroom to discuss it. So it's definitely affecting the training, and it's definitely affecting the science as well. There's no doubt.
Is there an underground support group for McGill University professors who are feeling this way, Dr. Drapeau?
I know there's many professors who feel the same. Most don't dare to speak up for various reasons. They feel that the university would not support them. This is true of students, incidentally. When we surveyed students, 20% of students feel that the university would not defend their right to express themselves. So that's highly problematic. But there are some professors who are moving towards organizing, and I'm part of this group. We want to organize discussion groups, because one of the things that's happening is that no one's talking anymore. Everyone's just going for each other's jugular. And so there's no room for discussion, and it's very easy to dehumanize someone by calling them, sexist and transphobic and so on and so forth. That ends the conversation, but no one wins from that. So we've got to learn to talk to one another, and that's one of the things that we want to be doing over the next year or so. Organize these discussion groups, including creating a space for people to address difficult and highly sensitive issues.
Last question here. Is there failure amongst the administration, the people that lead McGill University here?
I believe there is. Yes, I believe there is. This problem has been there for a while. It's getting worse. Students, I read in the article that was published by Émilie Dubreuil that some students even filed complaints to the ombudsperson at McGill, and nothing was done about that. So these students are not being heard. And I believe this is the vast majority of students who are reasonable, who want high-quality training. They want to learn the science. They want to learn the clinical skills. I'm in a program of psychology. They want to engage in conversation. They want to respect each other, and these people are not given the platform they need to further their training.
Martin Drapeau, clinical psychologist, professor at McGill University. Thank you so much for coming on this morning.
Thanks for having me.